Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started in just a moment.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Tanya Bass. I'm joined by Rachel Gibson. We'd just like to welcome you before we get started and ask you, if you'd like, to please utilize the chat box to let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to know if folks are on the snowy side or the sunny side, or the in-between side.
I can tell you it's snowy here in New Jersey.
Yeah, hi everyone. Can't wait to meet everyone tonight.
I'm here in Los Angeles, and it's kind of a gray day here, but the sun was shining earlier, and comparatively speaking, it's warm. I'm always chilly, though.
Definitely a little bit envious of those in the west and the southwest.
Well, I don't know, Bill. Last week we had a crazy snowstorm here in Arizona, so we're still on the recovery here in northern Arizona. It was pretty. We had like 8 to 10 inches, so it was a good time. Though it was nice.
I know people are still populating. I'm going to start with my notes because that's the least popular part of the agenda. We'll get a full room by the time people are coming in to hear from the awardees. So hello, everybody. My name is Bill Tavener, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the Sex Ed lecture series. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk about sex ed. Welcome back to colleagues who have attended our lectures before. If this is your first time with the Sex Ed lecture series, let me give you a brief history. I set this up back in March of last year as a way for sexuality educators to stay connected and keep learning during the pandemic. Since then, we have hosted 47 topics, so tonight is number 48, with 67 experts reaching over 1,500 professionals. Tonight, we're going to be honoring the 2020 AASECT Award winners, and this is one of my favorite sessions. These are people that I respect so much and have learned from so much over the years, and so I'm happy to see them honored by AASECT. Before we get started, I want to introduce our moderators, Tanya Bass and Rachel Gibson, who are going to help out with some of the technical aspects of the program. Tanya is going to give us a few notes before we start. Hi, Tanya.
Bill, Rachel, do you want to say hello to everyone before I jump into this?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's good to be here with you tonight, and we're looking forward to a great night of celebration.
Awesome. So thank you, Bill, and thank you everyone for tuning in. So excited to be co-moderating with my good friend, Rachel. We want you to continue to please utilize the chat box and say hello to each other. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Use the chat box as always. And if this is your first time, we do use it to network with one another, to share ideas, and just comment about what's happening during our time together. We'll be utilizing still our question and answer some tonight. So if you have a question, you might want to drop that and use the question and answer box. And I'll be looking at that to see. Both Bill and I and Rachel will all be working to look at the Q&A to fill some of the questions for our honorees tonight. We also want you to think about your accessibility and what's going to make it easy for you tonight to view our honorees. So on the top right of your screen, depending on your device, but if you're on a computer and you're utilizing a computer, you'll see like a little grid box or a little, I call them cubes, at the top right will tell you about your view, and you can select speaker view or gallery view. But for ease of presentation tonight, hopefully we'll be pinning the speakers as they come on tonight. I think I covered everything, Bill. Is there anything else?
You did a great job as always, Tanya. So now I'm pleased to introduce our special guest speaker for tonight, Dr. Sarah Nazarzadeh. Dr. Nazarzadeh is a social psychologist and global thought leader in the fields of couples counseling, cross-cultural fluency, diversity, and inclusion. She's the author of multiple books, including the Sexuality Education Wheel of Context. She served as the chair of the 2020 AASECT Award Committee, and it is in that capacity that she will serve as the honored MC, introducing all of our wonderful guests. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you very much. It took me a second to give myself a little voice here, to unmute myself. So hello, everyone. Welcome to snowy, sunny, different climate. I'm reading the chat box, and thank you so much, Bill, for doing this. This means a lot, especially this year with everything that we've been through, socially, politically, all around, really, really. So I personally am so grateful that you're doing this through the publication of the awardees, honoring them, and as well as, hosting this session. So this is really beautiful. Thank you. And Tanya, Rachel, thank you for being here to help us to run this as well, and to all of our awardees. So we have been given a little time, so to be as fair as I can, first I would love to thank Dr. Susan Usteris, who was the president of AASECT when I was serving. I had the privilege to serve as the chair of the awards committee. She was great guidance all the way through. And also the awards committee members, Dr. Thomas Ellis, Joe Mary Kessler, who's been with me for all the way through the past time that I served and this time, and Dr. Ann Morrow and Tamara Pincus. Thank you so much, you guys. I know how hard you worked, and there were a lot of things to read, to go through, to kind of jumble through. And you did a great job while we were all really unstable with everything else that was going on in the world. So I'm really grateful. Now, without further ado, let's go to the first, like by the list that I was given for the list. So the first one is the AASECT Book Award. By the way, this year, the categories are different. If you're submitting, please read the award categories. They're different. We are getting better and more efficient by making them more specific to the target groups and the language that we use. And we have a great committee to kind of, for the submissions to be received by. For the AASECT Book Award is presented to the authors of a book that makes a significant contribution to AASECT's vision of sexual health and to the clinical and educational standards of the field. So they need to have been published in 2019. And for last year, it was Trans Plus, Love, Sex, Romance, and Being You by Kathryn Gonzales and Dr. Karen Rayne. And we have Kathryn with us tonight, and they would like to say a few words.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Karen does send her regrets, but she, among us, the two of us, she's the one that has the 4-year-old. So I got nominated. It is with great pleasure I join you to talk about our book, Trans Plus, Love, Sex, Romance, and Being You. We wrote it because nothing like it existed, or at least nothing like it for youth. I have spent the last 15 years of my life as a person involved in Out Youth, the oldest LGBTQ nonprofit serving youth in the state of Texas, and the second oldest in the United States. We are celebrating 31 years this year. You know, having gone through my own transition at one point and having grown up as a teenager, very confused about who I was and what I was feeling, is actually reparative in its own way to write this book, because I wrote it for little me, and I wrote it for all the other little me's that are out there. But that's the thing that we discovered after the fact, and why I'm so glad to have the support of all of you and the recognition of the book, because what we found out is that we actually wrote it for trans and non-binary youth and all the people who love them. Some of my favorite comments about the book after all of these years is from parents and counselors and teachers who say, "Thank you so much for writing it. Now I have a common vocabulary to use when I talk to the youth in my life that I care about." And the youth most love the fact that we made sure to include the voices of youth just like them through the use of journal entries throughout the book. So it's not just two old people talking about what they were going through. It's definitely a youth voice in there as well. And so very honored to be here. Bill, it's great to see you. I wish it could be in person. Thank you, everyone.
Great to see you too, Kathryn. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Kathryn. So the next category is the AASECT Award for Integrative Approaches to Sex Therapy. And this award is for creative applications of an integrative and interactive approaches to sexual issues in clinical work with individual couples, groups, and supervisors of ages, genders, and inclusive all diverse groups. So last year, our great awardee was Dr. Stella Resnick. And I know that as an integrative person, you're going to walk us through the journey that you've been. So I cut my introductory part shorter.
I'm timing this, hoping that I'll get through this. So I'm very grateful for this award, which essentially acknowledges my life's work, because it's taken me my entire professional life to acquire all this knowledge and to be able to integrate it. I'm going to take you through my experience, which essentially started at Indiana University, where I was going for my doctorate, and I won a full scholarship there. I ended up completing it in 3 years, and I was accepted for a pre-doctoral internship at UC Medical Center in San Francisco at Langley Porter Neuropsychiatric Institute, which brought me to not only to San Francisco, but to Haight-Ashbury, where UC Medical Center is, in 1964, at the very beginning of the sexual revolution. And I certainly made use of my experience there. And it was an amazing experience to get into my full sexual awakening. And then at that point, I realized that I really did need to go for psychotherapy. So, but actually before even then, I started teaching at San Diego State, and then San Jose State. And then I met Fritz Perls, the founder of Gestalt Therapy, got invited to train in Gestalt with him. And I went into a training program at that point. And from there, I got entry to Esalen Institute, got to know some people there, called them up and said, I'd like to come and live there and study with all the people that are coming in, the leaders of the new human potentials movement. And I ended up really studying with all these wonderful people. I studied breath work and sensory awareness and expressive dance with Anna Halpern, and just an amazing assortment of wonderful people. And from there, I went back to San Francisco and started my practice. I got my license, started my practice, and it was a natural for me to focus on sexual issues, and particularly sexual pleasure. And so I see I'm running out of time even. So from there, I ended up meeting Betty Dotson, and I moved back to New York for a couple of years, and we became friends, and I studied her body sex. I took her body sex workshops. From there, I'm getting nervous because I have so much more to say.
Can I give up my time to Stella so we can hear the story?
Oh, really?
I would love that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Okay, I stopped my timer. So at that point, my focus was really not on what Masters and Johnson were teaching, which was all about sexual inadequacy, dysfunction. My focus was on sexual pleasure, because that's really what interested me. And so I started my practice in basically sexual pleasure, and wrote my first book, The Pleasure Zone, all about all the different kinds of pleasures that went into sexual pleasure. And then at that point, I wrote my first article for New Age magazine. I wrote my first article for Psychology Today on Gestalt therapy. And then I got invited to write an article on sexuality for New Age, and I entitled it The Erotic Lifestyle. And at that point, I was living in New York City, and I got an invitation from the director of Sandstone, which was a sexually open club, essentially, for open sexuality. And I was invited to give a workshop there. I flew to Los Angeles and gave my first workshop at Sandstone, and discovered this amazing place of sexual pioneers who were exploring sex in the open. And they had parties and no alcohol, no drugs. They had buffet. And so I gave my workshop there. People loved it. And I was invited to then start a growth center there. That was basically me doing my workshops with people who were exploring swinging and trading partners. And I learned so much while I was at Sandstone because they really encouraged watching people making love. And I watched a lot of people, and I really learned an amazing amount watching people who were successful at enjoying themselves and people who were clearly having a hard time. And I would sit there and be nondescript and just really watch how people made love. And I was invited to live there. I was invited to live at Sandstone, which I did for a while until Sandstone closed. And then I went back, and after writing my first book on the pleasure zone, I discovered attachment theory and the work of Alan Shore, because I was teaching at an institute for somatic psychotherapy. And Alan Shore just blew my mind, because what he was talking about with regard to early childhood trauma was my history. And it explained so much. And so at that point, I started to study attachment theory, and I went into a peer study group with Alan and all these amazing people. Sara was with us for a while, Sarah Nazarzadeh, and is coming back, I know. And that's when I wrote my second book, The Heart of Desire, Keys to the Pleasures of Love. And from there, I wrote my third book, Body to Body Intimacy. It's right there over my shoulder, Body to Body Intimacy. The subtitle is Transformation Through Love, Sex, and Neurobiology. And that is the book that integrates my work. And that's where I developed the program, Embodied Relational Sex Therapy, ERST or ERST, which I now have been teaching for several years. And I am currently teaching it in Russia online, and it's an incredible experience. So that's my story. And thank you for giving me this extra time. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Stella. Debbie, you embodied the generosity that we all need to have successful sex. And Stella, thank you so much for bringing all of this together. And this is really fascinating. The story as well as the journey. How many of us have the pleasure to actually see the actual thing that we're talking about all day long? So that's incredible. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next awardee who won the Humanitarian Award. The award is for service to field of sexuality by private citizen and is presented to an individual or group who has contributed to the field of human sexuality through some private, charitable, public awareness campaign, sex positive educational offering, or political platforms, and they have to be recognized nationally and internationally or internationally for their work. And for these, we have our good colleague, Ms. Gretchen Fincke.
She may not be here. So maybe we can come back to her if she comes on a little bit late.
Absolutely. And Gretchen actually didn't feel, at the time that we were offering the awards, didn't feel quite, to her word, deserving to receive the award, considering everything that was going on and her orientation. So that was another sign as why she was receiving this award. So that she was caring really deeply about that human community and the suffering. The next award is the Professional Standard of Excellence Award that went to Dr. Debby Herbenick. This award goes to people who serve the field of sexuality in multitude of ways. So for example, through a lot of publications, really changing discourses and bringing influences to the field through research, through media campaign, through serving organizations. And as many of you know, our own Debby was the past president of our organization, AASECT, as well. So she's been serving on many fronts. And that's why the committee decided that this award has no better recipient this year than Debby. So Debby, to you.
And so I did defer my time, so I'll keep it short, but thank you so much to all my mentors and to all my wonderful students who keep me on my toes and keep me learning. It's a joy to be part of our field in AASECT. Thank you.
You're very generous, Debby. Thank you. And by the way, all of these people on the screen are pretty famous. You can just Google them and read about them all you want. So, and then all of their information is out there as well. So the next award actually goes to the sexuality education. It's called the Sexuality Educator Award. And our very own Tanya Bass and Kristen Lilla won this award last year. Tanya, I can't really control myself. I have to call you a goddess, because that's one of your titles. So I was just dying to say it, just gonna say it. So this award usually goes to a current Asex certified sexuality educator who are serving through their works on multiple platforms, not only through publications, but also chairing conferences for ASEC and otherwise. They're recognized nationally and internationally, and they are being the voice of sexuality education on multiple platforms. So I keep that part short because, again, the description of awards always could be read online, and I will give the time to you, Tanya and Kristen, to share with us your thoughts.
Awesome, thank you. Kristen, I'm gonna let you go first and put you in the spotlight, if you don't mind. Sorry.
And here I was gonna be so generous and let you go first. Well, thank you so much. This has been, gosh, what a year, right? I am also gonna do my best to keep it brief. It's been an adventure. So I'm a sex therapist and a sex educator, and I truly have Girls Inc. to thank for my sex education experience. And I worked at Girls Inc. of Omaha for 6.5 years, working with K through 12 and such a diverse population, which was absolutely wonderful, including a diverse age range. And it was because of working there that I had the opportunity to meet Bill at one of the sex education conferences and was able to get involved volunteering at the conference and was able to co-chair at two of the sex education conferences. And I've also done lots of volunteer work with ASECT for many years. So it's been quite a journey. And I really, really have the youth that I was working with to thank for all of my sex education experience, because it was such an awesome group and such a diverse population. We worked with a lot of Muslim refugees, which was awesome. And I think I learned a lot more from them sometimes than they ever learned from me. And so much of what I did was really just normalizing things for them in the classroom. They inspired me and a colleague. We wrote a book, Vaginas and Periods 101, a pop-up book. And the book never would have happened without that experience. Here's our fun little pop-up so everyone can enjoy that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm having a moment. I think of some imposter syndrome. And so thank you so much. I really do appreciate the recognition. I look so forward to seeing so many of your faces in person as soon as that's possible. And I'm grateful to everyone here, but also to everyone, behind the scenes at ASECT and that has done so much work over the years. So thanks. All right, Tanya, it's all you.
Thank you so much. I think you can see me, hopefully you can, but I'm excited to be here tonight also as well. It was an honor to receive the award, but most importantly to receive the award with Kristen. And so it was like a double honor. I'd like to give a shout out to my alma mater in North Carolina Central University, the Department of Public Health Education, because that's where I learned all about sex, probably maybe not even in my adolescent years, like thinking about what I learned, but it was there that I started learning about prevention work, and that's where I cut my teeth. And then as I started growing in the profession, I started going to more conferences, and it probably wasn't until I went to my first sexuality conference. So shout out to Bill, to the National Sex Ed Conference. Although I felt at home at like some of the HIV prevention conferences and the teen pregnancy prevention conferences and even intimate partner violence conferences. It wasn't until I got to that conference and I was just like, wait, this is a little bit of everybody who does a little bit of everything. And this is so amazing. And I really wanted to connect. And I knew how challenging it can be to do our work, and that I believe professional development is critical. And so I'm committed to sharing what I've learned and helping others get access to professional development so they could be the best sexual health professionals as possible. And so that's kind of where I became really, I guess, motivated to found my own conference here in North Carolina with the support of many of the sexuality educators and therapists and counselors that you all know and love, who are members of AASECT, who encouraged me to go back to school and work on my doctorate, who encouraged me to become a certified sexuality educator, and who spoke at my conference basically for free. If you think about it, I won't say any names, they know who they are, but like at a rate that I know I couldn't pay them back if I tried. And so I'm just hoping that we all can continue to rally together, to support one another, to combat racism, white supremacy, to uplift comprehensive sexuality education, and to support new and upcoming professionals. So thank you, Asec, for this award and this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to the future, despite of what the past might have looked like in the most recent past. So I'll turn it back over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And for any of you out there who has not experienced Tanya's conference, I highly recommend it, both National Sex-Ed Conference as well as North Carolina. It was an amazing experience for me as well, and it was fantastic. So going on to the Distinguished Service to AASECT Award. This award is given for service to the organization and is presented to an AASECT member in good standing who is certified in at least one area and has worked to promote the mission of AASECT, advocating for sexual health through the development and advancement of sexuality education, counseling, and therapy. This award usually goes to a colleague who brings everything together on multiple fronts to really advance the newer generation of colleagues, the mid-career colleagues, as well as the more senior colleagues. And for this award, Dr. Savitha Pillai-Friedman was the deserving awardee last year. Savitha, to you.
Hi, everybody. I have to tell you, I'm feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome, and I haven't even written a vagina book, Kristen. So, you know, I just, I'm honored. I'm very honored to be here. You know, I was raised in a very traditional Hindu family in India. We never talked about sex. And so we were all expected to continue to live our lives without talking about sex. And my sister became an activist in India and a transgender activist in India. And I became a sex therapist. And I'm sure my grandfather is turning in his grave. But it's been a great ride. I have been a sex therapist for almost 18 years, and I joined AASECT, almost 18 years ago, and I served on the board, and I have now serving still on the conference committees. So it's been very exciting to fulfill AASECT's mission. My biggest passion is working with marginalized communities, and the community that I have chosen to work with are cancer survivors. And I was diagnosed and treated for cancer myself. And I realized when I went to my first conference to present about sexuality and cancer, I realized that these people were getting no information about sexuality, and they were, kind of getting treatment and going out into the community without receiving any sexual health information. So I've made that the mission of my life. So I have been providing services, talks to all the cancer organizations, Living Beyond Breast Cancer, Young Survivors Coalition. So I'm kind of on their speed dial. They call me anytime they have a conference, they want me to speak to individuals. I also see them in my private practice, and I'm about to start this a whole video series on sexuality and cancer. So I'll stop now. I want others to speak as well. So I'm honored to be here, and thank you very much, Sara, for giving me the opportunity, Sara and Bill for giving me the opportunity to be here, and Tanya and Rachel for being the MCs here. I'm very thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabitha. I hope we hear more about your new series. And also, you didn't tell people that you do really cool courses, like fantasies around the world, you know, views around love around the world. So really, I invite people to check this out. Really amazing work. Thank you, Sabitha.
Thank you.
Our next category is the AASECT Audiovisual Award, and this award is for the producers of a film, video, or DVD that makes a significant contribution to AASECT's vision of sexual health and to the clinical and educational standards of the field. And this past year, this award went to Jessica Drake and Joan Price. Please.
Hi. So Jessica and I decided that hearing one of us for 3 minutes and the other for 3 minutes wasn't nearly as good as hearing both of us for 6 minutes. So we're going to have a conversation because that's what we do. And I hope you can show us that. Yes, great. We're on a split screen. So we're going to go back and forth with a couple of topics. One is what the film means to us. To me, as an educator and advocate for ageless sexuality, it means an opportunity to show what realistic older age sexuality is all about. In the film, if you haven't seen it, I give a lot of instruction, a lot of information, tips for aging in a sexy way and what you can do, nuts and bolts, and attitudinal changes you can make. And at the same time, these points are illustrated by demos of real couples having real sex. My part was scripted, their part is not scripted. It means so much to me to be able to do this, but even more, what it means to you as sex educators, therapists, and counselors is that you have something like this that is an explicit guide for people who maybe say, okay, so she's written 5 books, but I'm not a reader. How do I see what? Here we are. That's what it means to me and to you. And Jessica?
So for me, making this film is my most meaningful film in the series. And I created Jessica Drake's Guide to Wicked Sex in 2011. This film means that I am combating the stereotypes and the stigmas that we all are bombarded with on a daily basis. Making this film with Joan has been one of the greatest accomplishments of my career as an educator. And just the fact that we've gotten so much feedback from people whose lives this film has directly touched, it really makes my work that much more meaningful.
What I discovered working with Jessica, I knew Jessica, everybody knows Jessica, and I particularly knew her. The way I mostly knew her, though, was as an educator and an activist, because I had heard her speak at some of the conferences we both went to. Working with her was an amazing experience. She cares so much about the people that are benefiting from a film like this. She showed such extraordinary understanding and deep compassion. I mean, you can imagine that having 2 senior couples having sex on camera who had never done this before, they were not professional actors, that there would be moments where, I don't know, I'm not so sure, and there's a camera right over my head here. And she was just extraordinary, and working with me, getting past some of my initial reluctance, which we laugh about now, because I can't imagine ever being reluctant to do this from here on.
So I'll fill in the blanks a little bit and just say that when I first met Joan, I knew that I wanted to create something with her. I was instantly drawn to her creativity, her intelligence, her magnetism. And I just knew that we had to create something together, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. when it came time in the series and I wanted to begin talking about senior sex, it was mostly because I had found in all of the curriculum that I've done as an educator, I have found resources on senior sex to be very lacking. And all at once it dawned on me, I want to give folks a resource, a real resource for senior sex. And I want it to be an explicit resource. And there is no one else that I want to do it with other than Joan. So working with her, when she finally agreed, and that's a story for another time, but it is an amazing story, let me assure you.
It's a longer story.
Super long story. Working with her is truly, if not the best, I would say the best collaboration of my life thus far. Something that I discovered about Joan while we were making this film is, like me, she is a bit of a perfectionist, wants everything to be just right, and is super deliberate about everything and so thoughtful and puts a lot of care into everything she does and is very compassionate. The surprise thing that I discovered about Joan when we were making this movie is that she's so good at reading a teleprompter and she had never done it before. So we were doing the narration for the first part and we queued it up and I was like, well, we're just going to try it and see what happens. She nailed it on the very first take, and I've never been as blown away by anyone as I am by Joan. And I love you, Joan, and I'm just so happy that you said yes, that we did this together.
Well, here's my teleprompter secret. I asked them to enlarge the print because I didn't want to wear my glasses while we were filming. So I said, enlarge the print to where I can just see it directly. And that meant I was just seeing one word in front of me. I didn't have to have eyes darting back and forth because there was no complete sentence in front of me. There was just words. Plus I practiced.
Well, okay, Joan, I was behind the monitor and I just have a quick question. How big was that font?
It was
like that big? Is it like this?
So what the win means to me is that AASECT chose this film, which is unlike what you as an organization usually choose. Now, I had won the Book of the Year with Naked at Our Age in 2012. So, and I knew what it took, but to have an explicit film, to have a film that could be so misunderstood by a lesser organization, to have that win this year means so much to me. I'm not only grateful, I'm full of this, full to brimming with the honor of this. And I thank you for that. And I know Jessica has her own idea about that.
Joan, you're gonna make me cry.
Okay. We've done
For
that
me,
before.
Yeah, we've done that a lot before. So for me, of course, I would like to echo everything that Joan just said. We are extremely grateful to AASECT for this honor. And the film was also awarded from different organizations in my industry, which again was an accomplishment over in the adult industry where I originate from, because usually we don't talk about senior sex in my industry. And so that recognition was good for me. The recognition from AASECT is especially important to me because as someone who is still involved in the adult industry, and as someone who has been and who still is a sex worker, to be seen and acknowledged for everything else that I'm doing, I want to say that it legitimizes me as an educator and recognizes all of the hard work that I've put into this, because that's the way it makes me feel. My first AASECT, I just didn't feel as welcome. And I think that this really signifies so much change and growth within this organization. And I'm just so happy to be a part of that. So thank you. And thank you to everyone here. I admire all of you greatly. greatly. And this just makes me so happy. And it brought me Joan. So
And it brought me Jessica.
Thank you so much, Joan and Jessica. And it's really lovely to see the variety of perspectives, the variety of work presented, the variety of audience that we touch. And I was just told that Gretchen has joined us, who was our awardee for the Humanitarian Award. Welcome, Gretchen. So I talked about a humanitarian award and how this is being presented. And I wonder that, I could just cut that part out to give you the platform to share some words with us.
Would you like me to talk about what the Humanitarian Award is?
I actually presented on that. We would love to hear from you what it means to you, because I know that, as a part of solidarity with our community, you refuse to accept it. So it means a lot for us that you are here, and we would love to hear what it meant to you.
Okay, and I'm sorry if I came in late. I thought I was coming in on time, but I must be late. So I'm very sorry about that. I was, of course, tremendously honored to be even thought about as a person that might be deserving of this award. And, but I need to tell you that when I was first notified of this, my first reaction was one of kind of bewilderment, because my understanding of the Humanitarian Award is that it is, it's given to either people or organizations that aren't even necessarily part of AASECT, but are doing, wonderful, great things out there around the world. And in my experience of looking at the recipients of the award over the years, when it was, it was given to either people that were doing really kind of worldwide, very prestigious things in sexual health, or they were given to organizations. For example, in 2018, they were given to the Women of Color Sexual Health Network. And so I was a little bewildered by the fact that they were giving this award to me. So I thought about it and talked to a number of my colleagues and people that I know and trust. And in the end, I made the decision to turn down the award. And the reason that I did that was because I felt that in the year 2020, with everything that was going on around us in the world, that to give a humanitarian award in sexual health to a white woman of privilege, because that's I am, was really not very appropriate. And I just had very strong feelings about that. And as I thought about it, and I realized, well, okay, I don't have to accept this award. I don't have to. I felt much better. I felt much more relieved in terms of what I wanted to do with this. And I'm aware of over the years how much work and how much effort AASECT has made to be inclusive of a number of different groups over the years. But certainly in 2020, AASECT's big push and big effort in terms of diversity and inclusion was to make room, and much more room than had been made prior, for Black people. And so I felt as though that was just not kind of an appropriate thing for me to receive. And so that's why I turned it down. My thinking was that we should have given the award to, somebody like the National Black Midwives Alliance, or some of the groups that are out there doing really huge, significant work in the field of sexual health, but not necessarily being very well recognized for the work that they're doing. So that was why I turned it down. And I hope I didn't offend a whole lot of people by doing so, but that was sort of my choice. And that's why.
Well, Gretchen, thank you so much. It's actually very interesting. I don't know about you. I believe everything happens for a reason. I believe there was a reason you were late and you went last, because you kind of brought everything together, at least for me personally. I feel like, yes, we are here. We are all gathered, celebrating each other, celebrating our field. If we don't call it out, who would? If we don't take a step to make everything inclusive, not only that, but take a step further to make things engaging for everybody, then what are we doing really? Right? And what is the example we are setting for people who are coming behind us and looking up to us as the people who's been in the field? What have you done? Well, we are still working on it, right? So for us, in our committee, we actually took your message to heart. And on that note, I beg you, not invite you, I beg you to reach out to people and make nominations more diverse. Please make them more diverse. I don't want to be a chair of the committee. I mean, now Bianca is in charge. Thank God I'm not anymore with this huge responsibility. But it's really important that, when I'm sitting there and receiving like 2 nominations, 3 nominations, make that 13. Give us a good range, to be able to really come in. And then, so I think, what I'm taking away from all of these is how much more we can do to make our work beyond the awards and, really be more inclusive and practice inclusion and engagement for all. And on that note, I'm honored. I have been honored for 2 rounds with this huge responsibility, with the support of the committee members. And congratulations again, Bill. Thank you so much for your creative mind to bring everyone together and celebrate our awardees, because we couldn't be together to give each other hugs and, to sing celebration cheers at the conference. So thank you for doing that. And Rachel, Tanya, thank you as well. Love you all.
Sarah, thank you so much for serving as the MC. And thank you and congratulations to all of the honorees. I should note that everybody who received an award wrote a short commentary for an article that was published in the American Journal of Sexuality Education. I succeeded in getting the publisher to make it open access so that everybody can access it. And then when I went to check the link this afternoon, they closed it back down. So I'm going to try to reach out to them and get them to reopen it up. They may have shut it down at the end of the year, but I want everybody to be able to read that and to see what was written without having to pay an annual subscription. Not that I'm against you paying annual subscriptions if you want to. So let me work on that, and a recording of this video will also be sent out to all registrants once it's edited this weekend. So we have a few more minutes. Do we have any questions? Do we have any panelists that want to say something a little bit more while we're getting questions in the Q&A box?
I do want to acknowledge that when I joined AASECT, AASECT was very white, and I was one of the few brown people there. So it is so heartening, and it fills my heart with joy to see so many people of color, and to see so many people of color on the board. I think I was the first, maybe the second person on the board, a person of color on the board. So that really fills me with joy, and I think ASEC has come really, really far. Very pleased about that.
Thank you. Anyone else? And if you want to speak, make sure that you're among the panelists, come off mute.
I want to say that I think what's most important for us all as sex educators, as therapists, as counselors, is to recognize the importance of our own personal development, not just our professional development, but to make sure that we ourselves confront not only our sexuality, but our relationship to pleasure, our ability to enjoy a wide variety of pleasures, because the more different kinds of pleasure that we experience, the more capable we are of helping our clients to recognize that sexual pleasure and sexual healing heals more than sex, that it is about who we are as a human. And the more we embrace pleasure itself, the more capable we are of being happy and being people who bring happiness to others.
Thank you. Any final comments from anyone else?
Well, I want to say that I really appreciate that the honorees have such a wide age range. I'm always very sensitive to that. I mean, I can't help at 77 noticing when panels are all 20 years old or 30 years old, but you know, the honorees today were such a wide range, and that makes me very happy. It means that we have accepted that we're not going to age out of sexuality, that's a given now in this organization, whereas I don't think it was in the past. So thank you.
Anyone else before I get into my boring wrap-up notes?
Before you do your wrap up, one of the biggest disappointments in this whole thing of winning the award, I think, Dr. Sarah, you offered it up, is that we couldn't be together to like really celebrate. And, you know, the world was definitely in a very much crisis situation, although we still are in many ways. And so as I'm looking at my screen, I'm like overcome with like joy and glad that we are technically all in one space. And so it wouldn't be right if I didn't ask for everyone to say cheese so that I can capture your faces Brady Bunch style. And I don't know what I'll do with it. So
I love this idea.
But if you do, it may go to Bill for social media or something. So if you don't want your facing, I ask you to go off camera. Otherwise, just smile as I remember how to take a screen share. All right. And I never smile because I'm so busy looking at the screen share. So I'm going to smile. All right. I got it. Okay. I got it.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Sarah, for hosting this and for all of our distinguished honorees and our richly deserving award recipients. Thank you so much, Tanya, and to Rachel for moderating the session. The next sex ed lecture will be this Wednesday, featuring Laura H. Pace speaking about pleasure is not a dirty word. You can check out her session and all of the upcoming sessions at sexedlectures.org. I have a bunch of links that I'm going to copy and drop into the chat just as we're wrapping up, and I'll just annotate them real quick. So we do accept proposals for people who would like to be a speaker in the Sex Ed Lecture Series. So there's a link for that. We always welcome peer reviewers as well. So if you'd like to be a peer reviewer, just send us an email. If you want to look at all of the upcoming lectures, we have the calendar up through June. So, and really important to me is sexedlectures.org has a link for anybody who needs a little help with the registration fee. There's a sliding scale program. We never want affordability to get in the way of people being able to participate in these lectures. So as I said, the next lecture is with Laura Pace on Pleasure is Not a Dirty Word. And so that is my link drop, and thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. And again, congratulations to all of the awardees. So thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks again.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.